They warned me the bar had rules. Not drink recipes, not safety codes. Rules for staying alive. Tonight's story isn't fiction. It's not folklore. And it sure as hell isn't just atmosphere. This is the Mourning Dove. An old bar in Georgia that doesn't just serve the living. And if you break the wrong rule, it serves you to something else. I'm a bartender here. And this is what happened my first week on the graveyard shift. Watch till the end, because there's a twist you won't see coming. And when it hits, you'll finally understand why the bar mirror never shows just your reflection. Drop a comment after the story. Tell me, which rule would you break first? And if you want more horror that breathes down your neck when the lights go out, subscribe. Because this is just one of the places that follows rules. The next one might not. Rent was due yesterday. My savings account contained little more than dust and regret. So when old Mr. Thorne, proprietor of the Mourning Dove, offered me the graveyard shift after a 5-minute interview that felt more like an assessment of my nerve than my bartending skills, I didn't hesitate. He'd mentioned the bar had character and a few essential house rules, his weary eyes scanning my face as if searching for cracks. I nodded, desperate, ignoring the faint alarm bells. Maybe I should have asked what kind of character, what kind of rules. The Savannah heat clung heavy and damp, even after sunset, smelling of cloying gardenias and the slow crawl of the nearby river as I pushed open the Mourning Dove's heavy, dark wood door. Inside, the air conditioning sighed, creating a pocket of cool, almost clammy stillness that felt decades removed from the lively street outside. The bar was long and narrow, steeped in shadows that the low-wattage, amber-tinted lamps seemed hesitant to fully disturb. Dark wood panels, stained almost black with age and generations of cigar smoke, lined the walls. Behind the long, polished mahogany bar, rows of liquor bottles glinted like captured jewels in the gloom, reflected dimly in the vast, age-spotted mirror that ran the length of the back wall. It smelled predominantly of stale beer and whiskey, undercut by lemon polish fighting a losing battle against ingrained smoke, the mustiness of old wood, and something else, a faint, persistent undercurrent of damp earth, like a cellar long unopened. Right beneath the floorboards, a man detached himself from the shadows at the far end of the bar, wiping down the already gleaming surface with a slow, methodical rhythm that spoke of long habit. Elias Thorne. He looked older than his 60-odd years. His shoulders slumped with a weariness that seemed etched into his bones. His eyes, shadowed and pouched, held a deep fatigue that went beyond simple lack of sleep. I saw his gaze drift for a moment to a faded photograph tucked into the corner of the antique cash register, a black and white image of a smiling young woman, and a flicker of profound old sadness crossed his features before he turned his head. Attention fully to me. Clara, you're punctual. Good. His voice was a low rasp, like dry leaves skittering on pavement. The way he said rules sent a small, irrational chill down my spine. He gestured towards the only other person currently behind the bar, a woman perhaps a few years older than me, leaning against the back counter, scrolling idly through her phone with an air of carefully cultivated boredom. This is Sarah. Works most day shifts, sometimes closes if I need her. She knows the Dove better than I do, probably. Sarah glanced up, pushing a strand of dark hair behind her ear. She offered a brief, assessing look, and a wry half-smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. Means I know where Elias hides the good bourbon and which floorboards groan like dying old men, she said, her tone light, almost brittle. Best advice? Keep the customers happy. Keep your head down. And don't take anything that happens in here too personally, especially after midnight. She gave her phone screen a final, sharp tap, but I noticed, just for a second, a slight tremor in her fingers before she quickly slid the device into her apron pocket, her nonchalance feeling suddenly like a performance. My attention was drawn then to the sole customer present, an elderly gentleman seated ramrod straight at the far end of the bar. nursing a small glass of amber liquid. He was impeccably dressed in a slightly old-fashioned suit, despite the late hour. His silver hair neatly combed. His gaze wasn't fixed on his drink or the door. He seemed to be taking in the entire room with a quiet, steady, almost unnerving intensity. "That's Mr. Abernathy," Elias murmured, noticing my glance. He is Mr. Abernathy, part of the furniture. Comes in every night. Same drink, same seat." As if sensing our attention, the old man turned his head slightly and met my eyes across the dimly lit space. He gave a small, formal nod, a gesture of polite acknowledgement, yet his expression held something deeper, a searching look, tinged with what might have been concern, or perhaps even pity, that made my skin prickle unaccountably. Elias Thorne leaned closer then, resting his worn hands on the bar top, lowering his voice conspiratorially. The weariness in his eyes was momentarily eclipsed by a stark, absolute seriousness. "All right, Clara, listen close now. Forget most of what you learned tending bar elsewhere. Here, things are different. I'm not kidding around. These aren't suggestions. They aren't guidelines for good service. They are the rules. You follow them. To the letter. No exceptions. Do you understand?" The intensity radiating from him was palpable. I nodded, my throat suddenly tight and dry. "Rule 1, he began, his gaze steady, holding mine. "Sometimes, could be any night, someone might come in, sit right there at the bar, maybe when you're not looking. You won't recognize them. You'll be dead certain you've never laid eyes on them before. Doesn't matter. They'll ask for the usual. When they do, you pour them a standard measure of the house whiskey, neat, no ice, and no questions. Don't ask their name. Don't ask what the usual means. Don't comment if their clothes look 50 years out of date, or if they seem to appear out of thin air. Just pour the drink. Take the payment if they offer it. Sometimes they use old money, and then you find something else to do. Look away." A chill, cold and specific, traced its way down my spine despite the Savannah humidity clinging outside. "Rule 2. He glanced towards the empty doorway as if expecting someone, then back at me, his voice even lower. Occasionally, the group might get lively, happy. Someone might raise a glass high and call out a toast. To the living. If that happens, you do nothing. You hear me? Nothing. Don't raise your own glass. Don't nod in agreement. Don't smile politely. Don't even let your eyes acknowledge the toast. You turn away immediately. Wipe down the counter. Check the garnish tray. Become instantly incredibly busy with anything else. Do not engage with that specific toast." His gravity was unnerving. But why? The question slipped out before I could stop it. A bartender's ingrained habit of understanding the customer. His eyes hardened, losing the earlier sadness replaced by sheer steel. "Rule 2 isn't ask why. Clara, Rule 2 is don't respond. Got it?" I nodded quickly this time, feeling foolish, and suddenly very aware of the shadows in the corners of the room. "And Rule 3, he leaned in even closer, his voice dropping to a barely audible murmur, forcing me to strain to hear him over the faint hum of the coolers. "The jukebox," he nodded towards the hulking, chrome and wood machine, squatting in a deeply shadowed corner near the back, currently dark and silent. "Most nights it plays blues, old jazz, maybe some soul. Nothing much newer than the 70s. But if it ever, on its own accord, starts playing a certain kind of tune, something brassy, maybe a fast foxtrot, maybe a sad, slow waltz, something that sounds unmistakably like it belongs in the roaring 20s, specifically 1924, you drop whatever you are doing. You reach under the bar right here." He tapped a specific spot near the beer taps where I now noticed a heavy-duty industrial-looking switch. "And you kill the main lights. All of them. Plunge the place into darkness immediately. Don't wait to finish pouring a drink. Don't ask questions. Just make it dark, fast as you can. He straightened up then, the intense focus receding slightly, leaving behind that profound, bone-deep weariness. He attempted a reassuring smile, but it was a thin, fragile thing that didn't quite reach his haunted eyes. Just those three. Follow them, Clara, and you'll settle in just fine. It's just atmosphere, character. As if punctuated by his hollow reassurance, the clean, heavy whiskey glass I had just placed upside down on a black rubber drying mat beside the sink slid smoothly and silently, a good 3 inches across the wet surface, stopping abruptly near the edge. My breath hitched in my throat. Sarah, beside me, polishing a glass with perhaps unnecessary vigor, didn't miss a beat, though her eyes carefully avoided looking directly at the moved glass. Counter must be warped right there, she commented, her voice deliberately casual, maybe a touch too high. She reached over with her cloth and nudged the glass back into its original position. Place is ancient, full of quirks, but it hadn't looked like a warp or a vibration from the street. It had looked deliberate, intentional, and the air around that specific spot on the mat felt suddenly, unnaturally cold against the back of my hand. Quirks. Right. The first hour crawled by in a haze of wiping down sticky counters and refilling garnished trays. The Mourning Dove settled into its nightly rhythm. The low hum of the ancient coolers, the clink of ice, the murmur of conversation from the few early patrons. Mr. Abernathy nursed his drink silently at the far end, a fixture as unchanging as the dark wood grain beneath his glass. Routine, normalcy, almost enough to make me forget the unsettling introduction and Elias Thorne's grim warnings. Almost. Then, the rhythm broke. I turned from rinsing a shaker, and a man was suddenly there, perched on a stool near the middle of the bar where no one had been seconds before. He wasn't dripping rain, wasn't flushed from the Savannah heat. He just was. His suit seemed well kept but cut in a style decades out of fashion, his hat casting his face in deep shadow. Before I could offer a greeting, he spoke, his voice raspy, dry. The usual. My heart gave a painful jolt. Rule 1. Don't question it. My hand trembled slightly as I reached for the house whiskey bottle, the cheap stuff, and poured a standard measure into a clean glass. Neat, no ice. I slid it across the polished mahogany towards him, deliberately avoiding eye contact, focusing instead on a non-existent smudge on the back bar mirror. He picked up the glass with long, pale fingers, downed the contents in one swift motion, and placed the empty glass back down with a soft click. A few coins appeared on the counter beside the glass. Heavy, oddly dull silver dollars bearing dates. I couldn't quite make out in the dim light. When I looked up again, steeling myself, the stool was empty. The man, his old suit, his shadowed face, gone. As if he'd evaporated into the stale, whiskey-scented air. My breath came out in a shaky gasp. I quickly pocketed the strange coins. They felt cold, wrong. Later, when Sarah drifted back from whatever task she'd been doing in the back, I asked her about it, my voice lower than intended. That man, who asked for the usual, Sarah barely glanced up from arranging bottles. Ah, one of them. Happens. Don't stare. Just pour. Best not to draw attention. She paused, then added, almost to herself, long as they don't bother me, they can have the whole damn bar. Her forced nonchalance didn't quite cover the flicker of something else. Fear? Fear in her eyes before she turned away. Across the bar, Mr. Abernathy sighed softly, swirling the amber liquid in his glass, his gaze distant and troubled. Just as I tried to shake off the deep unease, a new sound threaded through the bar's low murmur. Faint, tinny notes. Ragtime piano music, undeniably, seeming to emanate from the empty air near the back wall where the jukebox sat silent. It lasted only a few seconds, a cheerful ghost of a melody, before vanishing as abruptly as it began when I strained to pinpoint the source. No one else seemed to notice. A few minutes later, arranging coasters, I felt it. An intense patch of cold air lingering where the strange patron had sat, and the neat stack of coasters beside it looked subtly disturbed, as if someone had brushed against them. The rules weren't suggestions. The bar wasn't just old, it was fundamentally wrong. The pace picked up as the evening wore on. Tourists seeking authentic Savannah charm, regulars escaping the humidity, a few hushed couples in shadowy booths, the clink of glasses, the murmur of conversation, the low thrum of blues from the jukebox. It almost felt like a normal bartending gig. Almost. My nerves remained frayed, every unexpected movement or sound setting my teeth on edge. I was pulling a draft beer when a wave of boisterous laughter erupted from a group crowded near the center of the bar. They looked solid enough, maybe college kids or a bachelor party, loud and oblivious. One of them, face flushed, raised his glass high. "All right, folks," he bellowed, a toast to the living. The words seemed to hang in the air, charged and heavy, silencing the immediate vicinity for a beat. Rule 2 screamed in my head. Every instinct urged me to smile politely, maybe raise the beer tap handle and mock salute. Instead, I forced myself to turn my back, heart pounding. I focused with fierce intensity on wiping down an already clean section of the bar, the repetitive motion a desperate anchor. Behind me, the air around the group seemed to drop several degrees. Their renewed laughter sounded hollow, forced, lacking the earlier drunken joy. It faded quickly as they paid and left, casting uneasy glances back at the bar. The whispers started shortly after, indistinct, sibilant, like escaping steam just beneath the threshold of hearing. Sometimes seeming to come from the empty stool beside Mr. Abernathy, sometimes from the dark corners near the ceiling. They felt personal, commenting, criticizing, mocking my fumbling attempts to make a cocktail, my forced smiles at customers. I glanced at the back bar mirror and froze. My own reflection seemed to flicker, momentarily replaced by the image of a woman with terrified eyes and dark bobbed hair from another era, before snapping back to my own pale face. I scrubbed at my eyes, blaming fatigue, stress. Later, reaching for a bottle of Old Tom gin, a request as antiquated as the bottle itself. I found it wasn't where I'd left it just minutes before. It sat a few inches to the left, label facing backwards. My skin crawled. "Did you move this gin, Sarah?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady when she passed by. She glanced at it, then at me, a knowing, almost pitying look in her eyes. "Guess they're feeling playful tonight," she shrugged, resuming her polishing. "Probably just messing with a new girl. Better the bottle than you, right? Don't let him see it bothers you." Her casual acceptance, her use of they, sent another wave of cold dread through me. She knew, and she accepted it. The crowd thinned after midnight. Soon, only Mr. Abernathy remained, nursing his seemingly eternal drink, and me wiping down tables, nerves stretched taut as piano wire. The blues tune playing softly on the jukebox finished, leaving a heavy silence broken only by the hum of the coolers and the distant sound of a siren outside. Then, a sharp crackle erupted from the jukebox speakers, followed by the unmistakable sound of a needle dropping onto vinyl, even though the machine hadn't been touched. A jaunty, yet somehow melancholic, brassy tune filled the bar. A foxtrot, driven by a tinny piano and a mournful trumpet. Mr. Abernathy stiffened instantly, his head snapping up, eyes wide with something that looked like horrified recognition. "Dear God," he whispered, his voice thin and reedy. "That's Sweet Emmeline. Hanavan Brothers Orchestra. 1924. Rule 3, 1924. Turn off the lights." Panic surged, cold and immediate. My hands fumbled beneath the bar for the heavy switch Elias had shown me. Mr. Abernathy sat frozen, staring straight ahead, his knuckles white where he gripped his glass. I found the switch, slammed it down. The main lights cut out instantly, plunging the Mourning Dove into a thick, disorienting darkness, relieved only by the faint green glow of the exit sign and the weak moonlight filtering through the front window. The jukebox music continued, sounding louder, more insistent in the dark, and the other sounds began. Not outside, inside, all around us. The sharp, angry bark of male voices arguing, overlapping, the distinct sound of shattering glass, as if a tray of drinks had been dropped. A woman's terrified gasp, quickly cut off. A muffled thud, heavy and final. Shuffling footsteps moving quickly on bare wood. Though the floor was carpeted now, the sound swirled, directionless. Echoes made tangible, bleeding through time. I pressed myself flat against the back of the bar, hardly daring to breathe, the darkness offering concealment, but no comfort. An icy draft, colder than any air conditioning, brushed against my cheek, carrying the faint coppery tang of old blood mixed with cheap perfume. Then, as suddenly as it started, the music from the jukebox scratched and died. The ghostly sounds ceased. Silence rushed back in, profound and deafening. After a long moment, the main lights flickered once, twice, then snapped back on, harsh and revealing. Mr. Abernathy looked 10 years older, his face gray, his body trembling slightly. He drained his glass in one gulp, something I hadn't seen him do before. The bar looked the same, empty glasses, dim lights, shadows. But the air felt wrong, violated, and that faint, coppery smell, mixed with stale perfume, lingered stubbornly near the center of the room, a ghostly testament to the violence that had briefly, terrifyingly, replayed itself in the dark. The coppery tang lingered in the air long after Mr. Abernathy had vanished into the Savannah night, leaving me alone with the humming coolers and the ghosts, both literal and figurative. The events of the night, especially the spectral echoes summoned by that 1924 tune, left no room for doubt. This wasn't just a quirky bar. It was a wound in time, festering. And Elias Thorne's rules weren't about atmosphere. They were desperate, fraying stitches holding back an infection. My shift wouldn't end for hours. During a lull, fueled by cold fear and a desperate need for answers, I pulled out my phone, fingers flying across the screen, ignoring the tremor. Sweet Emmeline, Heaven Brothers Orchestra. I know each we had a canto star. Snippets emerged from the digital ether. Hazy local legends, mentions of a hidden back room during Prohibition, known for illicit gambling, and worse, whispers of a violent altercation. Names lost to time but associated with bad blood, betrayal, maybe a woman named Emmeline. The song itself was tied to tragic romance folklore. Enough pieces to form a grim, blood-stained mosaic. Sarah arrived near dawn for her opening prep, her usual cynical mask firmly in place. But today I saw the strain beneath it. The two bright eyes scanning the room with a nervous energy she couldn't quite conceal after last night. I waited until she was behind the relative privacy of the bar. It's not just quirks, is it, Sarah? I kept my voice low, but let the accusation harden it. The rules, the sounds last night, that smell. It's tied to 1924. Something violent happened here. Sarah stopped polishing a glass, her knuckles white. Keep your voice down, she hissed, darting a look towards the empty room. You don't know what you're messing with, don't I? I pressed, emboldened by terror rather than courage. Rule 1. Serving ghosts their last drink. Rule 2. Ignoring a toast, because acknowledging the living angers the dead. Rule 3. Plunging the place into darkness, because a song triggers a goddamn massacre reenactment. I laid out the fragments I'd found online, A hidden speakeasy. A fight. People died here, didn't they? And you know. The cynical mask crumbled, replaced by raw, naked fear that made her look younger, more vulnerable, yet somehow more dangerous. Okay. Yes. All right. She whispered fiercely, grabbing my arm. People died here. Badly. Bootleggers, gamblers, some poor singer named Emmeline caught in the crossfire. They're stuck. They replay things. The rules. She shook her head frantically. They're not perfect, but they manage it most of the time. Keep things stable-ish, predictable. Manage how? By not provoking them. By giving the usual ghost his whiskey so he moves on. By ignoring the ones who resent the living. By hiding in the dark when the worst memory surfaces. She gestured vaguely around the bar. I leave out a little gin sometimes, near the back wall, where the old speakeasy door was. Seems to calm things down occasionally. Little routines. Don't make waves. So you just appease them. Live with it? What choice do we have? Her voice cracked. You think Thorn stays because he loves the smell of stale beer. It's a burden, a curse, and you digging around, asking questions, saying names aloud. You're stirring them up. You're stirring them up. You're breaking the routine, making it worse. You'll get us both killed. Her grip tightened on my arm. Some doors are best left locked, Clara. Knowing more won't help you. It'll just paint a giant target on your back. And don't even think running away fixes anything. Once they know you, her eyes bored into mine, wide with terror. Once they've really focused on you, they don't just forget because you moved to another state. They remember. As if summoned by her terrified warning, the temperature in the bar plummeted. An icy wind, smelling of damp earth, and that faint coppery tang swept through the room, though the door remained closed. Bottles behind the bar rattled violently on their shelves. The lights flickered, dimmed, then flared unnaturally bright, casting harsh dancing shadows. No, Sarah whimpered, backing away, letting go of my arm. See, you did this. From the far end of the bar, where no one had been standing, a figure coalesced from the shadows. The man from the other night, the one who'd ordered, the usual. But now his face wasn't entirely shadowed. His features were sharp, cruel, his eyes burning with a cold, dead light. He fixed those eyes on me. Whiskey, he rasped, the sound like dragging stones. Now, before I could react, before rule, one even registered through the sheer terror. Whispers erupted all around me, no longer indistinct, but sharp, clear, malicious. Look who's asking questions. She knows your name, Emmeline. And colder still, a whisper that seemed to slither directly into my ear, referencing a specific painful memory from my own past. I'd never told anyone. Still running from that night, anyone? Still running from that night in it. Atlanta, Clara. My blood ran cold. They knew me. Sarah screamed then, pointing not at the spectral patron, but at the massive mirror behind the bar. Look away, Clara. Don't look. But it was too late. My gaze was drawn, horrified. The mirror's surface rippled like dark water. My own reflection stared back, pale and terrified. But behind me, overlaid like ghostly projections, the bar transformed. Flapper dresses shimmered. Men in sharp suits argued. Faces contorted in anger. I saw a flash of polished steel. Heard the deafening crack of a gunshot echo faintly. Saw a woman crumple near where the jukebox now stood. The images flickered, nightmarish, bleeding into the present. Then, the main reflection, the figure of the man demanding whiskey, moved independently. It turned in the mirror, its dead eyes locking onto my mirrored eyes, and began to reach out, its spectral hand seeming to push through the rippling glass, reaching towards me in the real bar. "I told you not to look," Clara shrieked, grabbing a heavy glass bottle from the counter and hurling it, not at the mirror, but towards me. "Don't let them take you." The bottle flew past my head as I ducked instinctively, trapped between Zara's panicked, dangerous interference and the horrifying figure emerging from the depths of the haunted mirror. The cold, dead hand reaching. The heavy glass bottle Sarah hurled sailed past my ear, shattering against the ornate back bar shelving with a sharp crack that momentarily seemed to stun the reaching apparition in the mirror. The spectral hand faltered. The coalescing shadow behind Maya flickered violently, and the intense pressure lessened just enough. Sarah didn't wait to see the outcome. With a choked sob, she turned and fled, vanishing through a back door I hadn't noticed before, leaving me alone with the chaos. The entity in the mirror hissed, a sound like escaping gas and tearing silk, before dissolving back into the rippling, distorted reflections. The whispers faded. The unnatural cold lingered, but lessened its grip. The immediate direct assault was over, but the bar felt irrevocably violated, buzzing with a residual hateful energy. Suddenly, the main door burst open. Ilias Thorne stood there, face ashen, eyes wide with alarm, clearly drawn by the shattering glass and Sarah's panicked flight. He took in the scene. The shattered bottle, the lingering foul smell, my trembling state, and a look of profound, weary despair settled over him, deeper than any I'd seen before. "She stirred them up again, didn't she?" "Didn't she?" he murmured, stepping inside and locking the door carefully behind him. "Or was it you this time, asking questions?" He didn't wait for an answer. "Doesn't matter. Once they're riled, it takes time for the pattern to settle." He surveyed the room, his gaze lingering on the mirror. "This place, it feeds on routine, Clara. On expectation. On emotion, yes. But predictable emotion. The rules, they're just attempts. Patches on a leaking dam." He sank onto a stool, running a hand over his face. "My family. We didn't build this place, but we inherited its attachments. Been trying to manage it, contain it, for 3 generations. Trying to keep the cycle from spilling out. Banishing?" He gave a short, harsh laugh. "No, you don't banish something that is the place. You just negotiate. You become the caretaker." He looked at me, his eyes filled with a terrible understanding. "It remembers who serves it, Clara. Remembers the faces behind the bar. Remembers who tries to change things." As the weight of his words crushed down on me, a soft cough came from the end of the bar. Mr. Abernathy. He had been there through it all. Silent, watchful, seemingly untouched by the chaos. He rose slowly and walked towards me, his movements precise despite his age. His eyes, usually just observant, now held an immense, ancient sadness. He stopped before me and pressed something small, cool, and metallic into my trembling hand. It was a tarnished silver locket, heart-shaped, intricately engraved, though the details were worn smooth with time. "This belonged to Emmeline," he whispered, his voice barely audible. "The singer. The one who started the fight that night. He took it from her just before." His voice trailed off, unable or unwilling to complete the sentence. He felt entitled. "It was the catalyst." He looked towards the silent jukebox in the corner. "Put it back, Clara. Put it where she sang, near the music. Maybe restoring that small piece of the pattern will quiet things. Not fix them. Nothing can fix this place, but quiet them." He offered no promise of freedom, only the faintest possibility of a less violent haunting. I stared down at the locket in my palm. Running felt impossible now. Suicidal even. based on Sarah's terrified warning, Elias's grim confirmation. The entity remembered. It didn't matter where I went. Stay here? Endure nights like this until I broke or became another echo? Or try this one desperate act? Restore a piece of a pattern I didn't understand. It wasn't a choice for freedom. It felt like choosing the shape of my prison cell. Containment. That was the only path left that wasn't flight into inevitable haunting or succumbing entirely within these walls. Clutching Emmeline's locket, its cool metal a small solid anchor in the sea of fear, I walked towards the ancient jukebox. It stood silent in its shadowed corner, a relic of happier times, superficially masking the tragedy it had presided over. Elias watched me, his expression unreadable. Mr. Abernathy had retreated to his stool, nursing his drink. His part played. Where she sang, Abernathy had said. I ran my fingers along the side of the jukebox, searching for anything unusual. Near the bottom, almost hidden beneath layers of dust and grime, I found it. A small, loose panel, barely noticeable. Perhaps where illicit tips were stashed back in the Speakeasy days. Pulling it gently, it came away, revealing a small, dark cavity within the machine's workings. It smelled faintly of dust and something vaguely floral, like long-dead perfume. With trembling fingers, I placed the tarnished silver locket inside the hollow space. As the locket settled onto the dusty wood within, a profound sigh seemed to move through the entire bar. It wasn't wind. It was deeper, more fundamental, as if the building itself was exhaling a breath held for nearly a century. The unnatural chill in the air didn't vanish completely, but it softened. The sharp edges receded. The lingering, faint smell of copper faded, leaving only the familiar, heavy sense of old wood, spilled whiskey, and lingering cigar smoke. The oppressive presence, the feeling of active, malevolent intelligence didn't disappear, but it settled, retreated. It felt less like a predator stalking its cage, more like ghosts falling back into a restless, dreaming sleep, bound once more to their sorrowful routines. The pattern, however flawed, had been momentarily restored. Elias Thorne watched the change, his weary face holding a complex mixture of relief and profound pity directed at me. You've, stabilized it, he murmured, his voice raspy with exhaustion. For now, but the balance is fragile. It needs watching, managing. Always. He slowly took a set of keys from his pocket, heavy, old-fashioned brass keys, and placed them deliberately on the polished bar top in front of me. I'm too old for this watch, Clara. This burden. He didn't say goodbye. He simply turned, walked to the door, unlocked it, and stepped out into the Savannah dawn, leaving the keys, the bar, and its spectral patrons behind, leaving them to me. Mr. Abernathy raised his glass slightly in a silent, sorrowful salute, then finished his drink and departed, leaving me utterly alone in the quieted, yet still deeply haunted bar. Years passed like slow drips from a faulty tap. Years passed like slow drips from a faulty tap. I am still behind the bar at the Mourning Dove. The wood is darker, the mirror more spotted, but fundamentally unchanged. I move with a weariness that mirrors Elias Thorne's now, an understanding etched deep in the lines around my eyes. The spectral patrons still come. The man wanting the usual appears some nights, his face always shadowed now. And I pour his whiskey without a word, my hand steady. Groups still sometimes offer their boisterous toast to the living, and I turn away, polishing the counter with practiced indifference, feeling the momentary chill they bring. The jukebox remains silent, mostly playing its mournful blues, but the potential energy within it, the memory of 1924, is a palpable thing I always feel. Mr. Abernathy still occupies his corner stool most nights, a constant, silent witness. We rarely speak beyond his order, but there's a heavy shared understanding between us, the keeper and the observer of this timeless prison. Till night, as I wipe down the bar at the end of another long shift, locking the heavy door, The routine actions are automatic. I catch my reflection in the vast age-spotted mirror. My face is tired, resigned, older than my years. Behind my reflection, faint as smoke, almost translucent in the dim light filtering from the street. Figures raise their glasses in a silent, eternal toast. A woman in a beaded dress smiles sadly near the jukebox. The man who likes whiskey nods slowly from his usual stool. I don't flinch. I don't look away anymore. They are my patrons now. This is my shift. My responsibility. My cage. Closing time never truly comes at the Mourning Dove. The glass never moved on its own, until it did. The jukebox never played that song, until it did. And now I know, the rules weren't just for safety. They were a contract, a way to keep something hungry barely on the other side of memory. I am still tending bar, still watching the lights, still listening for that one wrong song. If you made it to the end, leave a comment. Tell me which rule unsettled you the most, and subscribe to Night Creepypasta Rules. Because next week, we'll show you another place where the dead don't rest, and the drinks are never really for you.